Hey everyone, drop a comment and let us know where you're listening from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that thumbs up button. Enjoy the story. At my nephew's birthday party, my mother-in-law decided to speak her mind about Keziah. "Everyone here has children," she announced. "She's the only one of us who is useless." My husband stayed silent, and that very evening he kicked her out. 3 years later, she returned to her hometown with twins in her arms. You should have seen their faces when they found out who the father really was. But to understand how things reached that point, we need to go back 3 years, to the day that split Keziah's life into before and after. A day that began with a secret hope and ended with the slam of a door and freezing rain. The restaurant, the Onyx Lounge, was buzzing like a disturbed beehive. Today they were celebrating the 5th birthday of Cairo, Xavier's nephew. His mother-in-law, Zenobia St. Clair, lived for these events. Not so much for the grandson, but for the opportunity to gather the whole family, all the business partners, and the movers and shakers under one roof, to demonstrate the power and unity of the St. Clair clan. The air was heavy with the scent of expensive perfume, roasted meats, and the high-pitched squeals of children. Boys in sharp little suits and girls in poofy dresses darted between the tables, constantly risking knocking over a glass of champagne or a plate of appetizers onto someone. Keziah sat at the table, wringing her cold fingers beneath the tablecloth. She felt like an alien at this celebration of life. Around her, everyone was in pairs, threes, fours, parents with children, grandmothers with grandkids. There was Xavier's cousin, Tanisha, rocking her chubby infant, cooing something into his ear. There was a family friend, some local city councilman tossing his laughing daughter into the air. Families. Families were everywhere, and Keziah was just with Xavier, an attachment to him. She tried to force a smile when the birthday boy himself, Cairo, ran past, smearing something sticky and chocolatey on her sleeve. She pulled out a wet wipe to scrub the stain from her modest gray dress. At that moment, Xavier's aunt, a heavy-set woman in a bright burgundy outfit, approached her. "Keziah, baby, why are you sitting all alone like an orphan?" she sang out, enveloping her in a wave of sickly sweet perfume. "Go on. Look at how precious the babies are. It's time for you too, honey. Past time. That clock is ticking." Keziah felt the heat rush to her cheeks. She mumbled something incoherent about everything happening in its own time. The aunt shook her head sympathetically and walked away, her attention already shifting to someone else. But the sting remained. It was already the 3rd or 4th jab that evening. First, it was the wife of Xavier's partner with the innocent question, "Are you guys still not planning?" Then a distant relative with a story about how her daughter barely managed to give birth before 35. Every word was like a small pebble thrown in her direction. They weren't trying to be mean. No, they were simply reminding her of her greatest failure, of that emptiness she couldn't fill. It had been 5 years of marriage to Xavier. She scanned the room for her husband. Xavier was standing by the bar with his cousin Langston. They were talking animatedly about something, laughing. Xavier looked relaxed and happy. He didn't notice her suffering, or he didn't want to. Keziah replayed the morning's conversation with the doctor in her head over and over again, the tests, the endless procedures. "Keep trying. Everything should work out," the doctor had said. But years passed, and nothing worked out. And with each passing year, the pressure from her husband's family became more unbearable, especially from Zenobia. Her mother-in-law was in her element today. Dressed in a severe, perfectly tailored black suit with a high updo and a string of pearls around her neck, she moved through the hall like a queen surveying her dominion. She approached guests, exchanged a few phrases, and bestowed her icy smile upon them. Keziah felt Zenobia's gaze on her constantly, heavy, evaluating, judging. Zenobia never said anything directly to her face. Her weapons were hints, omissions, phrases thrown into the air, but intended precisely for Keziah's ears. Just then, a huge cake in the shape of a pirate ship was brought out. The children crowded around, their eyes burning with delight. Cairo, beaming with happiness, blew out the candles to thunderous applause. His parents, Xavier's sister and her husband, stood nearby, hugging their son. Zenobia walked up to them, kissed her grandson on the top of his head. And in the momentary silence, before the music started up again, her loud, ringing voice sliced through the air. "Look at this joy," she proclaimed, sweeping her hand toward her daughter and her family. "Everyone with children, everyone contributing to the legacy. You are the only one, Keziah, who is useless to us." The word dropped into the silence like a stone into water. It wasn't said with anger, but with a cold statement of fact, as if she were voicing a truth obvious to everyone. The music cut off. Conversations at nearby tables died down. Dozens of eyes stared at Keziah. She felt the blood drain from her face. The world narrowed to a single point, her husband's face. She looked at him, begging, silently screaming, "Say something! Defend me!" But Xavier didn't look at her. He stared at his plate, picked up a fork, and began methodically picking at the remains of his salad. His silence was louder than any scream. It was a verdict. He agreed. He thought so too. In that moment, Keziah realized she was alone, absolutely alone in this room packed with people. Someone coughed awkwardly. The music started playing again. The party rolled on, flattening her like a steamroller. But for Keziah, it was over. She sat like a stone statue, seeing nothing and hearing nothing. She was just waiting for the moment she could leave. The drive home passed in deafening silence. Keziah stared out the window at the blurred city lights. Rain was starting to fall. Large drops drummed against the roof of the luxury sedan. Xavier drove, gripping the steering wheel tightly. His profile was hard, unfamiliar. She wanted to scream, to ask why he stayed silent, why he allowed his mother to humiliate her like that. But she knew there would be no answer. His silence in the restaurant was the answer to all questions. They entered their apartment, the one they had furnished with such love 5 years ago. Xavier didn't even take off his coat. He stopped in the hallway and looked at her with cold, empty eyes. There was no sympathy in them, no regret, only a blank wall. "Mother is right," he said in a flat, lifeless voice. "I need a real family." Keziah froze, not believing her ears. This couldn't be happening. This was some kind of bad dream. "What?" she whispered. "Xavier, what are you saying?" "Pack your things." He cut her off. Those 3 words hit her in the gut, knocking the wind out of her. She looked at him, and the world around her began to crumble. 5 years of marriage, all the hopes, all the dreams, everything was turning to dust. But where will I go? Her voice trembled. Xavier, please. That's not my problem. He turned away. You have 30 minutes. He walked into the living room, leaving her alone in the hallway. She stood there, swaying, grabbing the wall to keep from falling. 30 minutes. She was given 30 minutes to erase herself from his life. On legs that felt like cotton, she walked into the bedroom and opened the closet. There were her dresses, his shirts, their shared life. Mechanically, she began pulling out her things, throwing them into a small duffel bag, the first one that came to hand. Toothbrush, sweater, jeans. What else? Her head was empty. Her hands weren't obeying her. Tears flowed down her cheeks, but she didn't notice them. Xavier stood in the doorway watching her, not like a husband, but like a warden. He was waiting for her to finish and get out of his house, out of his life. He offered